So like you, I am quarantined, right? And this is obviously an unprecedented time, but there's really a couple of different ways that you can look at this. And you and I all know that the media is not probably being very, positive always. And you can be like my friend Carol, who is letting me know all the death numbers, and she's tick, 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 watching the numbers go up. And she kind of lives in fear, and she's very interested in all of the celebrities that are getting it. And she just is really buying into the craziness and is actually getting quite fearful. I also have a friend, Lou, who is sort of the opposite. And Lou is using this as an opportunity to connect with people that he hasn't connected with in forever. He is using this as an opportunity to look at his own body's immune system and ask the question, what is it that I can do for myself? Or how can I support my family and my friends? And really the point of today is to choose, hopefully the latter path. And I brought on this panel of amazing experts, and they are the SLIM community. So I'm the founder of the St. Louis Institute of Integrative Medicine, SLIM, and I love all of these people, and I love you for joining us today. And I thought, really, we have to start out with talking about this amazing system that we have called our immune system. And there is a excellent immune expert, Dr. Angela Luchterhand, who I've brought on, and she is going to start us off with just kind of giving us a primer on how our system actually works and how we need to be thinking and how it can actually, we have more control over it than we realize. So Dr. Angela, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Kristen. I'm actually really excited to be here and to see some faces that I actually feel like I've met in person. So if I met you when I was down in St. Louis, hello again. So I am pretty obsessed with what's happening right now because I care about the immune system as an autoimmune specialist and having done some just basic hygiene initiatives for acute immunity in West Africa, right? So I've lived on both sides of the coin, and I love immunology, and right now I have everybody's full attention because everyone else now cares about it too. But when I'm lecturing to doctors or talking to patients, lots of times I'm talking about intervention strategies. But what we're missing in that conversation is all the things that are most of the work for your immune system leading up to that moment of intervention strategies, right? So in any existing thing on the planet, there are fundamental principles by which it functions or needs those things to be in place to function. So when I start these conversations with patients, I like to talk about it in terms of, if you and I walk into the same grocery store, breathe the same air, touch the same surfaces, and leave, and you get sick and I don't, does that mean that we are fundamentally the same, or is the host fundamentally different within the same environment? Okay, that question right there means there's a difference in how we encounter and respond to things in our environment. And so that means there's a lot of power in the patient's actions that can change whether or not they're the one that gets sick or the one that does not. Okay, and we don't talk about those things a lot because they're things that you can do at home that are very basic. So we often talk about the immune system in terms of armies, right? Because it allows us to talk about the front line and versus immunological memory. But I'm actually going to take a different twist on it because I think that everybody owns a cell phone and everybody can relate to the fundamentals needed for this little thing to function, right? It shows up at your house. And what does it come in? It comes in a box, you open it up, you pick it up, and it's in a hard case. The things that make it work are actually on the inside, those delicate pieces of electronics, but it comes in a hard case. That thing acts as a barrier between its delicate inner workings and the outside external environment. Okay, so us as a body, as a human being, we have that same fundamental principle for existence. Most of our interaction with the outside world is via barriers, okay? So we think about that in terms of skin, but that's also the lining that's inside your sinuses, your lungs, your intestines. And the more barrier function we have, the less intrusion that can harm the internal intricacies that are inside of us, right? But it also means that it's not going to protect it from everything. You also need to be cognizant of the environment which it exists. If I took my cell phone and rammed it against the ground and dumped it in water, we would have a problem, right? Because you need to have some level of protection in the environment that doesn't overload the system and make it malfunction. So when we're talking about social distancing from a human being perspective, all we're doing is creating an environment in which we don't have an influx that isn't able to be handled by the immune system should barriers be bombarded. So the idea of barriers and hygiene are huge, right? They're basic principles in terms of immune function and how to prevent disease spread, but we don't talk about those because those things have to happen before usually you end up at the doctor's office. Now, the other thing is, what else has to happen for this thing to work? You have to have a battery charge. If it's dead, it's not going to function no matter how good it looks and feels. So for us, we call that metabolic reserve. How much in the tank do you have of building blocks for your cells to do what they need to do? How much sleep reserve do you have to pull from? So that idea of a full battery, or at least some battery to pull from, is called metabolic reserve in terms of human function. If you have depleted or dead batteries, you will not have the ability to function either for long periods of time or at adequate capacity. Okay. And then the last thing is when we start to get into the idea of how do we talk about the immune system and its function. And really that comes down to proper signaling. And in my opinion, for the phone, that's the ability to see a text coming in and it has memory from you saying, this is Kristen Brokaw, it's my friend, I want to answer the phone. But when you first get your phone, none of that exists. And that's the same thing with a child's immune system versus an adult's immune system. So as children encounter things, we teach the internal intricacies, whether or not it's friend or foe, and how to identify it again later. Okay, that's the whole idea of immunoglobulins or antibodies. That's how we identify things later. So in an adult body, that signaling, in my opinion, is mostly dictated by the health of your microbiome, so the good and bad balance of bacteria in your body. It's about 80% of your immune system, and levels of inflammation. Okay, so I don't want to steal anybody's thunder in the implementable actions to have impact on these things, but I think it's powerful sometimes when we talk about these in terms of statistics, right? So I'm just gonna lay down some statistics for you to get an idea of how most of this immunology work actually happens with you at home before you would ever enter acute care scenarios or intervention needs. Okay, so when we talk about exposure and hygiene, you can decrease respiratory infections by 90% just by washing your hands. So this is a huge action that you can take at home that has nothing to do with going to the doctor, but has a huge impact on whether or not your immune system is being supported. The other thing that we talked about was barriers, and diet is a huge deal here because certain things we know very inherently cause disruption in the barrier. Chemicals, gluten, exposure to gluten once every 7 days will keep barriers leakier than if you didn't have exposure. Once every 7 days. So maybe now is the time to avoid some of those things like alcohol, gluten, and chemicals in your food. That battery power that we were talking about, that metabolic reserve, and sleep, when they did a study with nurses and the risk of getting pneumonia, if the nurses had 5 or less hours of sleep versus getting 8 hours of sleep, they had a 70% higher risk of getting pneumonia. Because sleep is when we repair and when we charge that battery. If that battery is not ever charged, you will, I don't want to say die because that's bad, but you will have issues at some point, right? You need reserve to pull from. And then when we get to the signaling aspect of like the microbiome and inflammation, this is where diet and stress come in. Stress decreases your immune system by increasing the production of stress hormones. So you are 2 to 6 times more likely to get sick if you are in a high stress environment. So are you cognizant of the things that are coming in? How are you interpreting and perceiving that data? What can you control in your environment? Having an adequate baseline of stress is important. And we talked about sugar a couple days ago, and I think that that's just insane. Like ingesting just 2 soda pops decreases your immune cell's ability to phagocytize, so gobble up and get rid of and kill pathogens for 5 hours after you have it. And then for the 5 hours after that, you are depleted from vitamin C levels within your immune cells because your body prioritizes the import of sugar into a cell over vitamin C, and chemically they look very similar. So that means just drinking even 2 glasses of fruit juice gives you a 10-hour window where your immune system is not functioning appropriately, and that's completely under your control. You're muted.
Yeah, no, I got it. I am. So Angela, and one thing that I wanted to just remind everybody of that Angela and I chatted about is when you get an organ transplant, they give you cortisol to suppress your body's immune system, and cortisol gets spiked when you eat sugar or when you're stressed. And they do that. They give the body cortisol when they do an organ transplant so the body doesn't reject the organ. And I think that that's very interesting, like that's what's happening to you every time we do that. So thank you, Angela. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Now we're going to go to Dr. Olivia. Olivia, please unmute yourself. And
Unmuted.
Yay. And you're going to tell us about the supplements and the nutrients that are out there that we can take to not only do the foundational stuff, but should we need treatment?
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about prevention. I want to talk a little bit about acute situations. And I think I'm sitting here taking notes as Angela's going, and I'm sitting here like, preach it, sister. And there's a little bit of controversy even around supplements currently that I do think should be covered. And I know that you've actually interviewed an infectious disease functional medicine practitioner. And I know that you've also spoken to some PhDs in response to certain supplements inducing cytokine storms or making them worse. So maybe when I wrap up on supplements, you can just kind of give your 2 cents on that, because what I've done is pulled a lot of the science and the research. So we know from a hygiene standpoint, so everybody talks about social distancing and washing your hands. And I think Angela really, really nailed it, talking about barriers and sugar and gluten's role in this. And so that's just going to segue right into, we know how important adequate sleep and sleep management are, but sometimes what we have to do is we have to induce those things. Right now, a lot of people are spending time on TV, on their phones, and are living in a really anxious state because their lifestyle's completely been disrupted. You have practitioners here that are going to talk about homeschooling and IV nutrients and Dr. Twyman about sleep hygiene. They're going to dig deeper into this, but at the end of the day, we know there are some ingredients that help our body adapt to stress properly. Ingredients like highly absorbable magnesium, passion flower, theanine, even using melatonin. If you are not sleeping at this time, this is the time to try to force that. Yes, by going outside and getting natural sunlight and limiting our technology use and meditation, things of that nature, but supplementation can help our body sleep, get more restful sleep. So I have a little bit of research here specific to viral infections. Melatonin has been shown to inhibit NF-kappa B activation and NLRP3 inflammasome activation. In fact, the age-related decline in melatonin production is one proposed mechanism to explain why children do not appear to have severe symptoms as older adults do. So we know that sometimes you just have to force it. So sleep and just responding to stress is so important. A little more specific to immune health is, in a perfect world, we would have been working on our gut health through probiotics and some specific strains of probiotics that are more beneficial to immune health and preventing viral infections. Because Angela again made the point, we could all get exposed. 10 people, 36 people on this call could all get exposed, and we will not all get it. So what makes us different? Well, and part of that is the barriers, including the barrier, our gut barrier, our intestinal health. So that's where probiotics, ideally, we would have been building this immune army for the last 60 to 90 days. It's never too late to start though. So I think probiotics are very important to touch upon. Certain protective antioxidants, zinc, selenium absorb very, very, very well with vitamin C, which I'm gonna touch on, but I'm really gonna let Pat nail that one. And even just certain foods that are rich in quercetin. Now, ideally right now, yeah, it's allergy season, but quercetin is found in a lot of natural antihistamines. And what you see in a lot of natural antihistamines is you see they're also anti-inflammatory, because we know when our body is dealing with high levels of inflammation, the immune system can't function properly, because a majority of our immune system is in the gut, 70 to 80%. But the other reason is because our body has to prioritize function. And if your body is loaded with inflammation, it's not just gonna protect the immune system. It's gonna prioritize the fire that's burning in your body. It's gonna focus more on fighting the inflammation. So the more we can do to have an anti-inflammatory diet, the better off we are. The more we can do to avoid foods that affect our immune response and deplete us of nutrients that we need, the better off we're gonna be. So certain foods that are rich in quercetin, although I'm a huge fan of supplementing, as we know, onions and apples. Other foods that have shown to be immunoprotective are licorice, tomatoes, nuts, berries, parsley, celery, and organ meats. So those are some of the nutrients I want to touch upon, as well as having healthy vitamin D levels. It is not a coincidence. It is not a coincidence that cold season goes into flu season, into now this new viral season, during a time where if we have not been building up our vitamin D levels through the winter months in adequate amounts, we know that we are more vulnerable right now, this time of year, than any other time of year, because we've been depleting our savings account if we haven't been making deposits in that account by supplementing with the right forms of vitamin D and by supplementing with the right doses of vitamin D. And one thing we know is most people don't take enough, or they take the right kind. But another thing, especially in people with autoimmune disease, people who are more vulnerable, people who have more inflammation, it's harder to build up your vitamin D storage account when you have high levels of inflammation. We know that. So whatever you can do to reduce inflammation, and a Trojan horse for those things is natural antihistamines, because natural antihistamines are also going to have ingredients that are naturally anti-inflammatory. I want to touch on elderberry in just a moment, and then I'm going to let you segue. I think you might be, you're muted, Kristen. I can't hear you.
Thank you. We can have questions at the end, but we've got to get through more panelists. So you were going to talk about elderberry.
I was just going to wrap up on elderberry as far as it being very effective as a preventive. And if everybody wants to touch base, or if anybody wants to touch base on the topic of cytokine storm, I think it's worth, I don't want to say dispelling the myth, but letting people know where that concept came from. So just to wrap up, as far as certain ingredients: garlic, quercetin, astragalus, peppermint, mushrooms, particular mushroom extracts, andrographis, zinc, vitamin C, which we know, I actually have a study that came out of Shanghai showing that they're using high dose vitamin C, 25 to 50 grams via IV, which I think Pat will discuss. But even just taking 3,000 milligrams of buffered C, how immunoprotective that is to our natural killer cells.
Awesome. Yeah, they're using vitamin C on the front lines in New York. Huh, it's so novel, right?
But nobody's talking about it. But nobody's talking about that. That's the thing is we keep showing up, wash our hands, social distancing. As Angela mentioned, those things are huge, but we don't need to hear that every day. At this point, we need to hear, what more could I be doing to stimulate and protect my immune system and my mental health and my sleep health?
Hence this summit, right? Like, you have control. So Kim Twyman, I know, and presenters, you each have 5 minutes. That's it, 5 minutes. Kim Twyman, you are next. You actually just unmute yourself. Kim, are you still with us?
Yes, can you hear and see me okay?
I can see you. Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk, switching gears a little bit. I'm here to talk about how to talk to your kids about what's going on. You know, these are unprecedented times, very challenging times, the likes of which none of us have ever seen before. We're not sure how to handle it. The kids have questions. They sense this uncertainty and this anxiety that we're all fearing right now. And their routines are as disrupted as ours are. You know, they're all at home now and adjusting to a new reality without their friends, without school, without the routines, the activities, everything that they are used to. So a lot of questions have come up about how to talk to kids, how to cope. I'll try to cover as much as I can in the next couple minutes. I would say the first piece of advice that I would give would be just to make sure that you educate yourself from, you know, sources that are really reliable. There's a lot of alarm and panic and a lot of misinformation going around. And so, you know, it's easy to read those things and become worried about it. Kids are picking up on things. They're hearing things from other students. I'm actually getting questions in my office from kids about just different things that other children in their class have told them. So just make sure that you have the reliable information so that when you have this conversation with your kids, you have good info. My other big piece of advice is just to be honest with kids. You know, a lot of parents want to protect their kids. They don't want anything bad to happen to them. They don't want them to hear that there's anything bad going on in the world. And kids kind of see right through that. And so just be really truthful, honest with them. You don't have to give them the whole spiel. You know, you don't have to give them a lot of detail or the statistics, but I would really, you know, focus on what's developmentally appropriate, and kind of give it in small chunks. So let's say you're talking to your 5-year-old about this. You might talk about the fact that there's this germ going around and people are catching it, and some of them are getting a little bit sick and some of them are getting very sick. And, you know, so unfortunately some people are dying, and, you know, but you're doing everything possible to make sure that, you know, they're staying safe, and, you know, and then talking to them about things they can do. For an older child, like let's say it's a teenager, they're going to want more information. So you can share more of the science with them, and you can share, you know, more about like what things that they could do to control it and how to help. And so speaking of that, I think that my final point is really just continuing the conversation with kids about what they can control and what they can do to be healthy at this time. So, you know, like everybody's saying, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. If they don't know how to wash their hands properly, this would be a good time to teach them. You know, there are videos out there. There are funny songs that you can use to instruct like how long you're supposed to be washing your hands, telling them that they should avoid touching things when they're out in public. I've got a lot of kids who are a little hyperactive and impulsive, and they like to grab things, and just to make sure that they're reminded not to do that when they're at the grocery store. Sleeping, making sure you get enough sleep, eat healthy, getting outside every day. Everybody's really cooped up right now. There's a lot of anxiety, and we just all of us, even the adults, need to get out and play every day. Don't be afraid of being silly with your kids. I would also encourage them to avoid a lot of screen time. The temptation is with all of this downtime that they're getting, that they're going to turn to screens. They're going to get sucked into things like YouTube and movies and things like that. So try to limit that as much as you can. The Academy of Pediatrics recommends no more than 2 hours a day. And I would say even more than that if you can do that. And then I would say also connecting with other loved ones. You know, they're at home. They can call their friends on Skype or Zoom. They could set up FaceTime, family dinners. This is, you know, a rare opportunity for families to really be together, and for parents to spend the time with the kids that we didn't have before all of this started. So we won't have this time forever. So take advantage of that, that time. And so with that, those are my ideas about this. And I wish everybody luck. Give your kids a hug and hold them tight. We'll get through this.
Kim, you were on 5 minutes on the nose. That was amazing. And on the nose. But I think that you hit the nail on the head, and using Dr. Angela's trick of statistics. So here are the statistics and how you lower your immune system when you don't sleep and when you eat. To me, those are the statistics I would be preaching to my kids.
That's great advice. Yeah.
So, okay, Donna Nauman, go ahead and unmute yourself, and you've got 5 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Go ahead.
Okay, what I'd like to talk about today is stress and anxiety. It's probably one of my most passionate things. I feel very strongly about it. 90% of what comes into our office is typically stress. My first patient of the day comes in, he's a diabetic, has high blood pressure. He hasn't been in a long time. What do you see? His sugar is almost 300. His blood pressure is 150/80. And the last time he was in, everything was completely controlled. In his mind, he says, I'm not stressed about anything that's going on here, Donna. I don't know why my numbers are high. And I explained to him, we have stress hormones. I want to instill hope here today. And in that acronym of hope, I'm going with the heart, optimism, pausing, and energy. In hope, the first part of that is H, the heart. Thinking about what's going on with the heart. The heart beats 115,000 times a day, which is a lot. Sometimes when we get anxiety, those numbers go up. The heart is responsive to all the energy that goes on around us. So we really have to do some things sometimes to calm things down in the middle of all this fire. His heart rate, heart blood, and his blood pressure are all elevated because he's having a response to what's going on in the community. He doesn't feel bad, but inside things are changing. When we get under stress, we're making over 1,400 different kind of chemicals. They're all over, they spread like firework all over our body. You can't control those things because what's happening is we're living in this vagus nerve area. The vagus nerve is kind of our fight or flight. And when we get in there, all of you know, settling that stuff down is just like, how do we do that? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to get some of those things under control. I really study a lot about the brain too in studying hypnosis and why those things really work. The brain makes brain waves just like the heart makes synchronized waves, and all of those things wave out into the universe. The heart beats about 3 feet around our body. So we have like every time we beat, our energy is connecting with other energy of other people. The same thing happens with the brain. The brain and the heart are connected. So the brain has somewhere between 12 and 60,000 thoughts a day. 80% of those are negative, and 95% of those are the same thoughts we had yesterday. This whole thing going on with the COVID-19 is disrupting our thought process, and we're having to build new neurons that we haven't had before. So what I think I'm telling patients in the office here is to start getting on board with heart math. Heart math is a process where we learn to do breathing exercises. We put our hand on our heart and we try to breathe through the heart and we pause. And every time we do that, it takes us from a beta wave in the brain, which is acute and aware, down through the alpha, down into the theta, and we're relaxing. And as we do that, it reduces our vagus nerve, it reduces all of our stress response, and it allows our heart rate to slow down. When we do heart math synchronizes both the brain and the heart together. And interestingly, we're talking about children here. Some things that moms can be doing with their kids right now is doing heart math together. Because in the studies, what they find is moms that are pregnant who practice heart math, which is breathing 5 in, 5 out, and breathing through the heart, the baby's heart rate and brain waves begin to mimic that of the mother's. So that area we were talking about earlier about, that 3 feet expansion of our energy, when people come into our energy spaces, they pick it up. You ever been in a room with somebody who's really, really hyper, and then pretty soon you start feeling the hyperness go up? Same thing for people who are kind of slow talkers. We tend to mimic down. And so what's really going on there is we need to be breathing through these things that we can slow down our slow into our parasympathetic, get out of this crazy sympathetic thing that we've been doing, and synchronize our brain, our heart, and our lungs. When you're doing heart math, it brings all three of those together. When you initially look at the heart math data, all you see is these wild looking scrolls all across the paper for the EKG. Once you institute the heart math process, it begins to slow and synchronize. So right now, just pause for a minute and just take a breath. One of the beautiful blessings of breathing and breathing in deeply is it also changes our interthoracic cavity and our intra-abdominal cavity. When those cavities change, it allows the lymphatic systems to kind of empty out and detox. So a lot of people who do yoga experience these through yoga, but you can simply just raise your arms up in the air and do some toe touches up and down. That change in the interthoracic cavity also affects our heart and lungs. And again, we're back to that whole thing, synchronizing the brain, the heart, the lungs. Let's get rid of those 14,000 chemicals. Let's live in hope. I think to pause means to pray and to meditate. Slow it down already. I mean, the biggest problem of where we are here right now is that we're all living on the fast pace of life. We're all on the internet. We're all on the telephone. We don't take a break. We need to get our kids, let's do some of these really cool things with our kids. Teach them to meditate. I don't know why we're not doing that in school, seriously. We teach them mathematics, but we don't teach them how to calm themselves down. People are anxious and it's getting worse all the time. And we can fix that simply by resynchronizing. There's a lot of other things that I like to do, but with respecting the time, one last thing I'd like to say for the vagus nerve, to calm the vagus nerve from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic, practice turning on music. Music synchronizes all sides of the brain, so the brain has to come from both sides. It won't just beat from one of the stress side. Humming, singing, cold showers, which I know we'd all love to do one of those, but it kind of shocks the body out of that sympathetic back into the parasympathetic, and again, right back into breathing and pausing and living. So I hope that we're spreading hope here. Hard work, optimism, pause, and use your energy appropriately.
There's nobody better to talk about that stuff than Donna. You are a rock star. Thank you. And you're right, meditation for kids, holy cow, I wish my mother would have done that.
Yeah.
So Leah, you are next. Dr. Alethea Eller. Why don't you tell us what you're going to talk to us about?
Sure. Can you hear me? All right. Thank you, everyone, for all of your thoughts and expertise. I'm enjoying this, and I hope my patients are enjoying it too. I've shared you with all of them. Kristen reached out to me earlier this week, and I was really excited about what she was putting together. I thought this was excellent, and I said yes. And then she followed up with a text that said, you're going to be talking on navigating working from home while your kids are online schooling. And I said, I laughed out loud. It was a text. She couldn't hear me. I laughed out loud. Ha, 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 ha. Pick somebody else, sister. Because I'm not nailing this. I'm not winning at this. And I texted her back. I said, you probably need to pick somebody else. I was hoping she was going to ask me about, vitamins and supplements and things. And she's like, no, I think people need to hear that then, So our lives have just been so significantly altered right now. And our lives have, and our kids' lives have too. I have 3 kids at home, almost 10, 12, and 14. And they're experiencing a lot of change and a lot of loss right now. And this wouldn't be what we would all pick. So I wouldn't pick this, they wouldn't pick this. And for me, trying to work from home while navigating their online schooling is definitely something I wouldn't have chosen. I send my kids to a great school for a reason, because I didn't want the gig, right? So here I am, I'm with the gig, and Kristen wants me to talk about how I'm doing with it. So our first day really looked something like this. I worked the day before, so I didn't have time I ignored the mass amounts of emails that were coming into me. And I opened up my computer the day that online learning started, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna deal with this. I can't even tell you how many emails there were that came through from all of these teachers and all of these administrators. And I was seeing all these new online platforms that I had to learn, and then I had to make sure that my kids were equipped on, right? And I don't want to invalidate, the teachers have done so much, and there's been so many people that have done so much, but as a parent of 3 kids that all had different platforms that were coming at me, oh my gosh, I was in a stress response. I mean, it just seemed like somebody put a whole bunch of work right onto a plate that I already felt like I had a lot of tasks on my plate that, I choose to do. So this seems like extra for me. My kids also really dislike this. I have one kid that is he's really loves a lot of his life, and he's lost a lot of it right now. And he is not interested in this online learning. And I have another kid that I definitely saw some perfectionism come out. Like right away, she was getting so frustrated that maybe it wasn't going to be right. And is her teacher going to be happy with the work that she's doing like this? My point is that there were just so many feelings. There were so many feelings. And an important conversation right now as we look at navigating working and online learning is we have the opportunity to see our kids through a major transition right now. And that's education. That's a different kind of education. But in our house, we're prioritizing emotional health. Like my kids have a checklist that I'm having them do to care for their physical health. They are definitely taking their nutrients. They're taking their quercetin. They're taking all of these things. But I'm making sure that top on my plate is emotional health. We've already talked about how the stress hormones really affect the immune system. And here's the thing, you're not going to learn. You're not going to learn if you're in a stress response. And my work isn't going to be productive in a stress response. So that's very significant. To navigate all of it, it was really important to me in this week that we started this, that everybody had a safe space to express their feelings. And I think that's a really great place to start. So when my son said, "This stinks," he actually said worse than that, and I'm going to clean it up for this. Life with teenagers. So this stinks. I don't like this. I don't even want to do this, right? What I didn't do was say, "You're going to be fine." I didn't do that because he would walk away from this experience feeling like he was in trauma and not heard. So I think it's really important. This is his opportunity to learn that he can go through a transition in something he doesn't like and something that feels like a challenge and feel heard and seen in it. So I got to sit there with all these kids and their feelings and my husband's feelings trying to work from home and do this too. And let them feel like it's okay that you don't like this. I see you, I'm with you, and I'm there to encourage them, but not in a way that diminishes how they're really feeling in that. So to me, starting online schooling this week kind of felt like a Marie Kondo closet clean out. I did it last year. I don't know if anybody else did it, but you stand in front of your closet and you say, "What is all this crap in here?" Like that's how I felt. I had all these emails and I had all this stuff and I was like, "Pull it out, sister, pull it out." I just let it all like, okay, we're just going to get it all out. And then we spend some time and we say, how do we want to put it back? What's in our best interest? What's going to work for us? What's what we want to keep? And we're really intentional. How are we going to put it back? What do we want to use? How do we want to use it? Because there's no right or wrong here. This is about us supporting our physical and our emotional health through this and our kids.
A second right on the 5-minute mark. That was pro. I will tell you, we had a consult this week at Ortho, and it was by this, person who does exactly what you're talking about. And she said, "We are not going to get as much done right now." And there's a lie that everyone's telling themselves that thinking we are, right? And so everybody's slowed down. This is okay. Like it's okay, right? And so Leah, you actually helped me. I needed to have that conversation with my boyfriend.
Okay, good.
All right. So Amy Horn, you are next up.
Hello.
Hi.
So I thank you, first of all. I'm so happy to be here. Kristen and I had a conversation on Tuesday. We were checking in on all things supplements and just checking in on life in general. And it came up that I think it's so important for people to have tools right now. We need actionable tools. What can we do? And so I love that you set this up, and I love that we brainstormed and you presented all of these things and all of these tools that people need. We are in now more than ever, people are going to the internet and people are looking for information, and we have to put some positive things out there. So I am a chiropractor, and I work a lot, obviously, with physiology. So Kristen asked me to speak about how to easily stay in our exercise routine, and I added and/or create one, because we're in time and space where we're uncertain of time and how long this will be. And actually, I think we've been given a lot of time. So time is an excuse for a lot of people to not do something, and I think we've just been handed on a plate time. So first of all, a little history about myself. I have 3 children as well. I find that the best time for me to exercise is in the morning when I'm not disrupting our morning routine. So I choose to get up very early in the morning. I do my meditation. I exercise by 5 or 5:15. My routine is pretty steady. I do the same thing on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I do a Tuesday, Thursday boot camp that I actually run with other friends. And for me, I love to be around other people. So the importance of exercise, the accountability of having someone else there is super important to me. So let's just talk about why movement is important. I think right now it's important to every day, obviously, but especially now for multiple reasons, given the uncertainty of timing. My fear is people will get out of their habit where we can sleep in a little longer. We are going to get up and do school with the kids. We'll get it later. I think it's super important right now to keep a routine. I'm getting up at the same time every morning. I'm staying in that exercise routine. And again, I mentioned now is the time to add something to the habit. You can get up a little earlier and you can add some exercise. Obviously, health and immunity benefits with exercise are expansive. Let's just talk about a few of the physical aspects. You know, moving is what keeps our joints lubricated. So you're going to have less pain when you are lubricating those joints. So rather than sitting on the couch all day watching Netflix and catching up on all of your shows, getting up and moving is what's going to lubricate those joints. And we're oxygenating our muscles and our vital organs as well. So when we're breathing in, we're expanding those lungs, we're moving things in our body. And stagnation is where things like to grow and disease likes to harbor in stagnation. So the more we move the junk out and we move good things in, I think that's just going to be better for us. The other important aspect of exercise, and honestly, as a working mom of 3, I tell people every day that exercise is my mental, this is my mental sanity. If I don't exercise, I'm not a good parent. I'm not a good person. I'm a better human when I'm exercising. And that's because of the release of endorphins. You know, we're limiting our cortisol and adrenaline, our stress hormones, when we're exercising, and we're releasing endorphins, which actually are our body's natural painkillers and elevators that brings our mood up when we have more endorphins circulating in our body. You know, I think the other few important things is getting your kids involved. There are so many things that we can do. My kids are older, so it's a little, you know, they're missing sports right now. So getting them to walk the dog or to just, hey, let's run here, go to the park, whatever, getting them out of the house is super important for them for the same reasons. We have to keep their mental clarity, A, to do schoolwork, and B, just to feel good, because this is so uncertain for all of us. I think tools, you know, I have seen online, there are many people, obviously our smaller gyms are closed, our Pilates studios are closed, our yoga studios are closed. Now's the time to really look at what's out there. What do you like and what do you not like? People are offering their knowledge online. There's so much virtual training out there right now, to call your local gym or to reach out and say, hey, who's doing what online? It is right there at your fingertips on your phone. Simple things that I like to do, I Google boot camp exercises and hit images, and there's a whole boot camp, many boot camps lined up for you. For me, having a beginning and the end is key. I can't put a video in and do the same thing every day. I think finding an accountability partner, somebody that's going to do it along with you, so that they can say, hey, did you get up and do it this morning? And lastly, I think to inspire the people around you, we're ready to put recipes and, hey, this is what I'm cooking tonight. What if we put out, this is how I'm moving, or this is what I found, and share what we find and who might be offering something that might work for us. So thank you for having me.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, my gym they're doing Facebook Lives, and so that's how I've been working out every morning. I think you can't swing a dead cat without hitting some gym, you know, putting out content right now and doing Facebook Lives. So yeah, ask your friends what they're doing to work out. Thank you, that was great. Dr. Michael Twyman, you are next. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right.
Yes. Why don't you tell us what you're going to talk to us about today?
All right. Well, I'm going to be talking about my usual. So kind of some biohacking topic 101, you know, how to mitigate your circadian rhythms by your light environments, your timing of your meals, and reducing your technology use. So thank you for inviting me. So I'm Dr. Michael Twyman, heart attack prevention expert, owner of Apollo Cardiology, and a biohacker. So I help optimize people's health for longevity. So today we'll talk a little bit about some tactical things you can do to mitigate your light environment and optimize your circadian rhythms, your 24-hour cycles. So there's two things that really set your circadian rhythms. It's the light that enters your eye, and it's the timing that the meals come in. Just briefly on the meals, when you put food in your mouth, it triggers the circadian clock in your liver and gut. Try to shut those things off 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. If you do that, the liver and gut clocks are able to get you into deeper sleep. But mostly going to be talking about light. So very tactical. So go outside every single day and see the sunrise. That's the master circadian clock setter, is that morning sunlight. There's no UV, it's blue light, all balanced. No glasses, no contacts, at least 5-10 minutes a day. Then multiple times a day, going outside, letting your GPS clock basically talk to the sun and resetting your time. There's an app, it's free, called D-Minder. You go outside, tells you what time of day you can make vitamin D on your skin. If you're lighter, you need more time. If you're darker, you need more time. Then once you're inside, that's when you need to protect your eyes. And your eyes are extremely important for protecting your melatonin production. So you actually start making melatonin in your eye. It gets released from your pineal gland after darkness. It needs about 3 or so hours of darkness before it gets released. And it's not the same thing as taking a pill of melatonin. You can mess up your natural production of melatonin if you take too much oral melatonin. It's a different story if you're using for jet lag or very short-term use. The long-term use of melatonin is associated with thinning your retina out, potentially can cause some bleeding in your retina. So try to do it the natural way. But once you're inside, we'll start with what goes into your eye. So blue blocking glasses, anytime you're in front of this technology. We're all going to be on Zoom, Skype, FaceTime more often, during this time. So protect your eyes. Typically, if you see me, I'm usually having the day walkers, but those may not be enough this time. You want to protect your melanopsin receptors even more this time of day, because melatonin, one of the body's master antioxidants, it's going to be helpful in protecting you from getting COVID. So wearing glasses that block up to 550 nanometers may be key for you. Limiting your artificial light. Use as much natural light as possible. If you were actually in my office right now, got the red light box kind of illuminating from the side, and Pat would appreciate it. I got this last week. Good timing is I actually got the Weber laser watch. So it's shooting red, blue, yellow, and green light into my radial artery as we speak. So complete biohacking this right now. So, and then the other thing to really save your circadian rhythm is, once it's dark, mitigate your light environment, and in your bedroom, it should be dark as possible. Blackout shades, wear glasses, or kind of the eye shields if it's still light getting around your windows, but you need really dark, because even your skin has these things, these melanopsin receptors that get triggered by light, and it'll affect your sleep. Sleep is one of the most powerful things to boost your immune system right now. Sleep, you raise your cytokine levels, your natural killer cells improve with deeper sleep. So it's not necessarily the hours of sleep, it's the quality of sleep. So that was kind of my crash course in Biohacking 101 in light. If you guys have any other questions, you can always follow me on Instagram at Dr. Twyman. I'll be available for questions at the end. And the question, it's a Weber medical laser watch. So thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So just real quick, so because this is all new maybe to some people, you're saying get up, watch the sunrise. That's going to help your immune system and set your circadian clock. When it's dark outside, stop looking at technology. And if you're in your house, where can they go to get the blue blocking glasses?
There's a couple different manufacturers of them. These ones particular are Raw Optics, True Dark, Blue Blocks. And if you need prescription, Blue Tech lenses. I'm not paid to promote any of them, but I just tend to like the Raw Optics.
Okay, so wear those at night. I bet a lot of people are, looking at their technology at night and wondering why they're not sleeping.
Yeah,
right?
they're destroying their melatonin levels by doing that.
And that's of course decreasing your immune system.
Correct.
So and then you're saying eat earlier in the day and make sure your last meal that you put in your mouth is 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed.
That would be ideal, yes.
And how does that help our immune system?
It helps a couple things. It helps with your blood sugar regulation. It helps with you getting into deeper levels of sleep. And it just allows your liver and gut time to relax.
Yeah, and repair. That's
Correct.
awesome. Awesome, thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, next we have our other biohacker and the matriarch of functional medicine, Pat Bauer.
I don't know where you got that name, but I'll take it. I'm Pat Bauer. I own Wildwood Integrative Healthcare, and I'm all about the immune system and helping it maintain high function. And then what I use for my patients is IVs and then light. IV vitamin C has been available for probably close to 80 or 100 years, and nobody talks about it. It became popular, or I'm sorry, it was studied and used in the 1940s, and it cured things like polio. Well, through history, certain treatments have been swept under the rug or pushed away. I would say they get twisted in terms of what's important. So we went to taking a pill for a problem. And now here we have a virus, and the virus is really strong and it can kill people. But all the people that have been on this call are spot on in my book. You use food, exercise, movement, supplements, light, and it keeps our immune system strong. But when it isn't strong, you can use IV vitamin C, which is in a situation with a virus, it will improve your immune system, make it strong enough so that it kills pathogens. We can also use a combination of ozone and ultraviolet light. Ozone is a gas. We take blood out and we ozonate it outside your body in a bag with normal saline. We give that right back to you. And I can run the ozonated blood past ultraviolet light or use a laser to irradiate the blood in the body. And irradiate isn't a bad word, it just means to light up. But what the ultraviolet frequency does to the blood is it inactivates pathogens, so bacteria, viruses, fungus, and parasites. And then when those are inactivated or killed, then a strong immune system knows what to kill and what to keep into check. So it's a process that the body can do all on its own, but if you're sick enough, you may need some help. And so IVs are a good way to help yourself. It's interesting now that we're talking about or seeing people talk about vitamin C in the use of in hospitals in New York and before that in China to help people get over COVID infection. And it's absolutely true. And you don't need a lot, but the more you have, the quicker your body will usually respond and heal itself. So none of what I do is me healing you. It's I'm helping your immune system and you heal yourself. And I think that's what all of the presenters here today are talking about, tips and tricks to help you heal yourself. And whether it's light or a supplement or food or being mindful, we are beings of light. We're energy. We just don't know it. We don't know how powerful we are. And I think if we would get that, and maybe that's this time of slowing down, it will help us see that. And then we can come together and realize that we don't need an outside pill to make us better. Although those are important. If I get in a car crash, take me and give me whatever you can to save my life. But after that, it's my job to stay healthy. And that's how I work with my clinic and work with my patients. It's like, my job is to boost everything so that people get better. And one of the cool things that Dr. Twyman started, we were parallel in our pursuit of light. And I have a Weber endo laser. It's not in this room, but it's a way to get light into the bloodstream. And I talked about it a minute ago with ozone. And basically, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a catheter that goes into the arm. And once I have the catheter in, I can take this filament, which is a fiber optic cable, slide it into the catheter in your arm, and hook this piece up to a specific frequency of light. And one of the frequencies is the ultraviolet to kill pathogens. We can do yellow to release serotonin, and or to activate vitamin D, which releases serotonin, which people come out of. I've seen people come out of depressions once they get enough serotonin. So there's all sorts of really cool ways to put this all together. You've brought people together that, I mean, as a society, we're going to go on, on searches individually. Everyone watching this will look and find things that are new that they never thought that they had control of. So everyone should keep their mind open. There's lots of really cool people here in St. Louis, and I'm sure in other areas too. And we just have to know that we are way more powerful than we think we are, and smarter.
Way to go, Pat Bauer. Yes, I was thinking about you with all this. I'm like, I bet you are slammed. People are wanting to get in and stay healthy. So
yep.
Now I want to bring on one of my very good friends, Jessica Eidelman, who is a food sensei. Jessica was on, I don't know if she is on anymore. Jessica, I did see her earlier. She maybe had to jump off. Okay, we are going to jump to you, Deb Carlin, our psychologist.
Unmute me.
Yeah, you're unmuted. You're unmuted.
Okay, great. What a great lineup. And by the way, Pat Bauer, Madam matriarch of this whole shtick here, I'm going to be talking to you. I love this group, and Kristen, you're genius for coming up with this whole thing, because functional medicine is an awful lot about everything that is in my world and has been for as long as I can remember. So as a doctor of psychology, as a trained research scientist, I always look for what is really credible. My topic today is about managing your feelings during this time of uncertainty. Okay, so let's put the emphasis on this time because quite frankly, even though we've got a global issue here and we've got a pandemic, it's all about perspective. And there are people who have gotten into times of uncertainty that are just as huge for them in here as this is for a whole planet of people. Everything about us is based upon what we're doing I think it was the first speaker who was on here who was talking about having everything encased in, making the analogy to the mobile phone. I always say it's so good that this comes in a hard candy shell, so it's really protected, because this is Grand Central Station. So when we're talking about our feelings, are we talking about our heart? Yeah, sort of, but really we're talking about the unconscious process that's going on in our mind that are generating our feelings. The one thing that we have absolute control over in this life is our thoughts. And yet we will spend more time training a little puppy how to go potty outside instead of running away than we will train this to stay with us and say heal. And I mean it both in terms of heal and healing. We have the authority to decide, where do these thoughts go? This is the entire universe in here. And we have the ability, and I did my introduction talking about myself first as a doctor of psychology and as a scientist, because I'm not talking fluffy here. I mean actual credible. Mind-body medicine is as old as human beings, is as old as anything anciently. From our very beginning, our perspective dominates what our feelings are and how we behave. For every thought, we have a feeling, and vice versa. And that pairing releases neurotransmitters into our body that kind of take over. Well, we have to be conscious about where we want to take over. When I was in graduate school, I decided that I wanted to research the most prevalent disease that robbed more members of our culture than anything else. It was cardiovascular disease, you know, like 35 some odd years ago. So I called up Dr. Herbert Benson, cardiologist out of Harvard, who had opened up the first mind-body clinic in this country over 50 years ago now. And he took all the practices of the yogis and created the relaxation response. The most important thing that I have done with my research, with my teaching at the universities, with my client population, and if I'm helping people on medical issues and getting HIPAA releases and diving into their charts and coordinating with their physicians, and then they become patients, is teaching 100% of the people the relaxation response. If you Google my name and say the relaxation response with it, you will go to a free video. You do that 15 minutes every day, twice a day. And what you will find is that you are getting control of your mind. And when your mind starts to get captured by the good verbiage, your body says, oh, that feels so good. I want to do that again. And they call it the relaxation response because it really truly becomes automated. The body gets stressed and it says, hey, mind, let's go back there. And the mind says, we're like this, we're going. And then you learn this and it becomes automated. We can talk to our patients and our clients and our students and our audiences about all kinds of things. But if we just simply do this exercise and demonstrate it, it changes the cadence of your tone, of the oomph in your voice, the rhythm, everything, your heart rate for sure. You will see that from the opening of this exercise to the ending of this exercise, if you use a digit thermometer, it relaxes the vascular system, dilating it, so digit temps increase. You put a blood pressure cuff on, you see blood pressure decrease. It's marvelous. And where the mind goes, energy flows. So everybody who's on this marvelous panel and who's part of SLIM and who's in our audience here today, the number one thing is to stop and think about that, because your feelings will follow where it is that you take this. So let me close with one thing. We know in research, for as far back as I've been able to research, which is more than a century of information, our prognosis positive comes in part from our faith. Regardless of religion and religious practice, whether it's faith in the universe, it's faith in a higher power that we identify, that we pray to or we meditate to, we know that that shifts our prognosis. Why? Because we're not carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. We're giving it over. And we're saying, I know that this too shall pass. Where we are right now, everything about what I do with this and with this is about saying, there's an opportunity here. Everybody in this group has talked today, either overtly or subtly, about the opportunity for a massive reset of humanity, a massive reset of our culture here in America, a massive reset for our daily practices, relationships. What would it have taken for Kristen to organize us if not for this? How quickly did all this come together? We cleared our schedules because they were cleared for us. We got motivated to be here to contribute. And Kristen, bless your heart for it.
Well, thank you.
Peace.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have one more panelist, And
Yes, shout up. I'm muting again.
Jessica, there is no one better. There's no one's food I would rather eat than this young lady. So Jessica, can you unmute yourself?
I am unmuted. Thank you. And sorry, I'm on location. I'm in my car, you guys. So I got kicked off right as someone tried to call me earlier, which is what happened there a second ago. So I'm Jessica Eidelman. Thank you, Kristen. Glow Nutrition. I'm board certified in holistic nutrition. I focus on food education, and I'm happy I could make this call, even if it is in my car. I'll try to make this fast to let everybody go. Kristen asked me to take this home. So, you know, this time is definitely an opportunity to practice more mindfulness with our relationship with food. And that is my primary message for this call. But also today, Kristen asked that I discuss foods that support the immune system, which I would like to do very quickly. As most of you know on this call, the majority of the immune system is in the gut, right? And these foods that I mentioned today are going to work best in a healthy gut. When gut integrity is in question, let's encourage stock, or what's trending now to be referred to as bone broth. And if one isn't willing to make their own bone broth or stock, and most people, let's face it, they're not in that place, let's try to introduce collagen peptides that can be added to a prepared or a store-bought bone broth, or even, you know, just about any kind of food. It disappears. It's odorless. It doesn't taste like anything. Traditionally cultured foods like kimchi and miso, sauerkraut, these are also going to be helpful because of how they impart beneficial microbes into the gut, fermented foods in general. So to make this easy, we want to guide ourselves as well as others that we're trying to help to foods with high amounts of zinc, vitamin C, and magnesium. I mean, we could split hairs over what's going to boost the immune system from a food perspective all day, but this is what people really gravitate towards. People already know these things, right? And there's plenty of produce still at the grocery store, right? So we don't have to panic about that. Even magnesium is really important, as well as all mineral sources, but magnesium in particular because of how quickly our body will burn up magnesium during times of stress and anxiety. And everybody on this call knows how that impacts the immune system. So some specific antiviral foods and herbs, as well as general foods that can address immunity. We'll start with general ones. Oysters and shellfish, one of the best sources for zinc and minerals. Any member of the allium family, or onions, bok choy, shiitake mushrooms. You know, any mushroom is going to be great immune support, but shiitakes, the polysaccharides, and specifically, well, all of them, but shiitake in general, these are really potent grocery store mushrooms. A lot of people can find them easily still. By the way, mushrooms should always be cooked. Let's see, ripe peppers, citrus, berries, camu, acerola. These are all very potent sources of vitamin C. Raw pumpkin seeds, hemp, almonds, a vegan source for things like zinc and minerals. Specific antivirals that are easy to find right now at the grocery store: fennel, garlic, ginger, oregano, basil, sage, rosemary, peppermint, elderberry, dandelion greens, and their roots as well. These are all well-researched, evidence-based sources of antivirals that we can find very easily. You know, fresh fruits and vegetables they're not just high in vitamin C, they're also extremely high in fiber. And this is going to feed those those gut microbes that are so important in maintaining the immune system. So this is a benefit to eating high vitamin C foods as opposed to just taking vitamin C supplementation. I got on this call late. I don't know if anybody addressed this, but vitamin C isn't the easiest to absorb when you take it in high doses orally. So, you know, getting foods throughout the day that are fresh is one of the best ways to get vitamin C. Vitamin C does degrade, depletes with age and with heat, right? So we always want to consume them as fresh as possible. In particular, in this context, the highest vitamin C foods would be most useful in vegetable juices or smoothies. And, you know, vitamin C as a supplement is kind of hard to find right now. So camu, acerola, these are food-based dried sources that you can get and supplements. They can be added into these juices, these smoothies, these foods. I would be remiss to discuss immune boosting foods without discussing prebiotics and how we can get a more potent dose of these foods. That these are basically foods that feed our microbes, and we get these by eating cold grains like colder room temperature oatmeal, rice, and even potatoes and gluten-free pasta. These foods, cold, have a lot more of something called resistant starch, which some of you may or may not have heard of. They're also lower on the glycemic index, especially when combined with fats like extra virgin olive oil, avocado. So these are things that we can batch in, you know, in the beginning of the week or during the week and make in large quantities, put them in the refrigerator, and they're already ready to eat. We don't have to warm them up. We actually don't want to. And some of these things that I have listed, you know, as a takeaway to close this down, one of the things that out of all the things I just listed, in traditional Chinese medicine, as a way to put all this together, it's very popular to simmer something with this was referred to as Trinity root in broth or bone broth. So this would look like ginger and garlic and green onion as an example. And then we could add shiitake or bell pepper, right? And we have a soup. Or we can saute shiitake and bell pepper and garlic and a little bit of onion and serve that on a side with some sauteed shrimp, sauteed in garlic, right? So we can make beautiful meals for ourselves during this time it's really nourishing our connection with our food and really inspiring cultivating some food practices that we probably already, you know, have asked ourselves why we haven't been doing yet. So with that, I will shut it down. And if anybody, I don't know, like I said, I jumped on this call late. So if there's show notes that we can put in an email and share for everybody that's in attendance, I'd be happy to put some of these things in there as well.
There will be. There'll be links to everybody who was on here today. And thank you, Jessica. I'm so glad. And I want to say I had dinner last night. I cooked for myself. That's a shocker. And I had like most everything you just said in my dinner.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
I want to wrap things up for us and say, and this is to the clinicians as well. There is a shortage of supplements out there for treatments or antivirals, and you know, like Jessica just mentioned, vitamin C, and this is such an opportunity for people who have put their health sort of as a given. Now it's in the forefront, right? So I know my doctors are sort of elated about this opportunity, but it's also occurring for all of us as well, right? Like I cooked last night. I want to kind of bring up the toilet paper analogy. You can't get toilet paper right now, and you can't get a lot of these antivirals and these treatment products. And my doctors are freaking out and all of this. However, what is not on back order is like what Jessica said. The fruit, the vegetables, that stuff is out there, and so are the fundamental supplements. They're not on back order. And there are so many things that it surprised me that they're not on back order, right? Everybody should be going to the basics, and they're not. They're worried about the future, which is the thing that hasn't even happened to them yet. So if you aren't focused on supporting your mitochondria, the battery of your immune system, if you aren't focused on, like she said, the pre and probiotics that you can get from food, or taking your probiotics that maybe you've forgotten about in your cabinet, if you aren't focused on getting sunlight and walking outside, which I see families doing like crazy now, we all have to go, okay, you can take the sidewalk, I'm gonna stand here, right, as you pass, and then you're just being kind. But, and getting your vitamin D, or taking the supplements, and taking the supplements that are in your cabinet, and vitamin C, eating the oranges, eating all of those different fruits and vegetables that Jessica mentioned, and taking the vitamin C, even if it's something like emergency or whatever, or going to see Pat. These are the things that I want everybody to realize that is in their control, that they can do right now. And that's the stuff that should be on back order, right? But it's not. So doing the fundamentals, all of this stuff, we have total control. I hope everybody's amygdala is not hijacked now after this whole conversation, and that we are all cool, calm, and collected. We are going to spread this replay with our friends and family and tell them, like, listen, it's all going to be all right. and you have these resources here in St. Louis to utilize now, because none of them have closed their doors, that you can utilize now and to maintain your health from here on out. So I haven't seen any per se questions in the chat. Yes, this is going to be recorded. Yes, there will be a replay. Yes, I have everybody's email, so you will get sent the replay and the resources to everybody that was on the call today. I just can't say thank you enough, and I'm blessed. And my last thing is, I'm sort of a border collie. I like to call myself a border collie because like I keep my herd together, right? And so when all this is happening, I kept saying, well, what can I do? What can I do? And I would say that if everybody had that attitude of giving more, that it really takes it off of you. And that's what I've been experiencing. Like, it's just created so much joy for me to put these freaking pros on a panel together and to say to people like the Carol example I used at the beginning of the call, who's focused on the numbers and the tick, 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 tick of the deaths. And I'm like, I don't know anybody like that, but here's what I do know. And here's what everybody I know knows. So with that, I think we did a great job today, gang. Thanks for showing up. All right. I love you all. Happy quarantine. Bye-bye.